It's Monday, July 1st. It's the first Monday in July. So, and it's 9 p.m. Eastern. So that means that we're hanging out. Um, I don't think we have much of an agenda. Ryan brought up a really cool idea in one of our prior meetings of what if there was a 16K Spectrum-ish ROM for the ZX81 slash TS-1000, and not 10 minutes after we were done with our meeting, it turned out that there is such a thing. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, I'm going to give you just a brief update on the TS-Pico because Ricardo, who is the main man behind this, especially in terms of the programming, has um, wrapped up all of the changes that he wanted to make for sort of the next version. And we're going to be testing that with a couple folks, some of whom are actually on the meeting today. We're testing that for a couple weeks and trying to find bugs and iron them out. And once we get past that point, hopefully it will be a reasonably easy update for folks with their existing Picos. The way that Ricardo has done it, just add a couple files to the SD card, stick them in the Pico, and turn the Pico on without the 2068 power, if I recall correctly. So you have to power it from a little USB cord or something. But it's pretty ingenious, and what it will do is open the doors to folks who want to do their own programming to extend what the Pico can do, because that can be done really, really easily. And Ricardo had said midsummer. Here we are, midsummer, which is pretty good, for an all volunteer open source project where, people have actual lives. We're not just, dedicated to doing this, 40 hours a week. All right. So with that, I want to ask Ryan just to give us a little recap of his thought that he had in the prior meeting about what if, there was this thing.
Okay. Um, well, actually, what it was, well, it was a thought a good while back, um, probably even back in the day, that most of the changes um, between the ZX81 and the Spectrum were in the ROM in terms of the capability of the basic that was built in. And this was true especially true between the ZX80 and the 81, which you literally could put the 81 ROM in and have nearly every feature um, except slow mo, because that involved a hardware
Mm-hmm.
uh, change. And so I was just making the point that, hey, most of what made a Spectrum is that ROM. And yeah, there was the help of some circuitry, um, but and so the new thought that occurred to me was like, well, how much of that's we have all these hardware people and we're tinkering around, and we have things where potentially we could just replace the internal ROM externally. And I thought, well, how much actual hardware changes would you have to make to have a probably slightly modified Spectrum ROM actually work? Because otherwise, everything's fairly the same. Obviously, the bus has got fewer signals, that sort of thing. Um, and so after the meeting, maybe later that night or whatever it was, I Googled around and quickly came upon uh, pretty much exactly that. But it was very mysterious. There was just this, hey, here's this ROM out I made, and there was this forum posts, and you get an old version, and then there was some newer version several years later in 2018. I think the project started uh, somewhere before 2013, I think. And yeah, it's actually got then some special features, and then and at that point, that's kind of where I looked at that and said, well, okay, here's links, guys. Isn't this interesting? And then turns out I kept Joe up late, it seems. So over to you, Joe.
Okay, so once I saw that and I read just the beginnings of that set of forum posts, and I saw that my ZX81 could have read data and restore and out commands and open and close and all these things that I've always wanted on a ZX81 but never had back in the day. I was determined to make it work. So I downloaded what was called the SPONZY final ROM. Apparently, it's not the final ROM. The 2018 is the 100% latest ROM with a few bug fixes. But anyway, I dug out a board that I don't know. I bought it for like $1 because the case was all smashed up. It was the X81 that I bought for $1. And immediately started molesting it. So of course I had to replace the 5-volt regulator and put in a amplifier for the composite video out. I was lucky enough that it had the ULA with the back porch on it, so that part was done. So it's an
Okay.
issue 3 with the newer ULA. Then I started figuring out how do you cram a 16K ROM into an 8K space, and actually most of the work was already done for me, because if you look at the ZX81 out of the box, there's a lot of extra pins in the ROM socket that aren't used, and it was made for a 16K mask ROM, which is a slightly different pinout than a EEPROM. Okay, so if you look, I don't know how close I can get that and still be in. You see some flying leads and some bent pins where
Yeah.
they didn't match up, and I had to go out and find the correct address lines, I believe 12, 13, and or 12. No, it was just 12 and 13, I think, for that, because it's relatively low, right? And then there's a jumper there for the chip select to make that correct. And then once I had that, then it would start to boot up, but it only had 1K of RAM, so there wasn't enough RAM for it to actually work. But I did see activity on the data bus, so I knew that the processor was doing stuff. So I said, okay, that's good. Now, let's move on to a 16K RAM upgrade. So and there's lots of tutorials out on the web how to do a 16K RAM upgrade. A lot of them mix up the address lines because it doesn't really matter. I'm too OCD for that. I have to make the address lines correct. It just helps me when I'm trying to troubleshoot something and if I'm on the right address line or not. So I actually modded the board, cut some traces and patched some traces, and added a few bodge wires, which you can see over here. And I made them as short as possible. My first try, I just bent the pins out and soldered them to the right spot, and the computer was working, but the display was scrambled. It just had a bunch of garbage in it, and it was a timing issue between the ROM, the new ROM, and that static RAM, because the new ROM actually uses time that was set aside for DRAM refresh to process the high resolution screen image. Okay, and this ROM depends on that high resolution screen image. So I reworked it so that it was, all the leads were as short as possible, minimal amount of noise, and shortest lead length, and plugged it in, and it worked. I came up to a little Timex Sinclair banner at the bottom, much like our 2068, and you hit enter, and you're at a K cursor.
Wow.
Okay.
How much RAM do you have in your thing then?
I have right now, there's a 32K RAM chip in there, but I'm only using 16K of it. I didn't map the other 16K yet because I'll need to add some additional decoding.
Okay.
Okay. So I will try that and see if it works. I'm also contemplating just doing a 48K add-on on the expansion to
Huh?
fill in the, from, or I'm sorry, 30, another 32K, excuse me, expansion up here to fill in that last section, basically.
With dynamic RAM, I think you said.
Yeah, with dynamic RAM and see if it works. But I'll have to take one of the dynamic RAM boards that I have and remap it because it's going to want to map to the same spot as the 16K. So I'll have to remap that.
Why dynamic RAM on the external bus versus static?
Because I can't. No. uh, uh, the timing is only most critical for that video portion. So to make it as 1982 as possible, I'll use the dynamic RAM pack. I'm thinking I could possibly take something that somebody already has and put it on there. Although I could create a just a little plug-in module that has the surface mount 32K on it and just map it into that section.
Yeah, that reminds me that someone just recently completed working on such a thing.
Yeah,
But
there's actually several out on the web. And I think there's even folks with Tindy stores that sell them. But
yeah, and I think that this one maps, starting at the 16K, and I don't know that necessarily you'd be able to remap it.
there's there's some that have switches that I saw as projects. They're probably out on GitHub somewhere that have the ability to flip a set of dip switches and
Yeah.
map the blocks anywhere you want. So
Okay.
that
That would be
if you
ideal.
built anything, it would be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
And besides, how can I have a ZX81 with all this power
Yeah.
and not have to fear wobble and die syndrome?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And of course the dynamic RAM. Um, all right. So all right, since you are insistent on the dynamic RAM,
No,
there
I'm
was a
not.
I'm
I'm
just
not. I just wanted to see if I could take what I have and make it work, which is kind of in vain of what I used to do as a kid.
yeah, yeah. No, and I'm only being slightly, a bit of a smartass. Um,
Yeah.
the there was a guy who wrote an article about turning a 1016 into a 64K unit, and it requires a couple dead bug ICs. And there's an article about it on the website, um, which might get you close to what you want. But then again, you'd have to find in your parts drawers, which you probably already have, Joe, the what is it, 64K by one dynamic RAM chips.
Yeah, I might have a couple of those left.
I bet.
So I guess I have some questions then. Maybe you're not at the point you can answer it. I don't know, but well, one that just additional one was, I would you well, you said ZX81, which is it's the hardware, obviously. So now it's basically a Spectrum, pretty much. Um, but one can imagine that, I guess you could put in a potentially a ROM switch, couldn't you? But that would be one thought. um, the other was,
Well, that's what I was hoping to do with the larger EEPROM. So I had a
oh, I
64K
see, I see.
EEPROM, and I wanted to divvy that up into chunks. So like a 16K chunk and then several 8K chunks. And that way I could
Right.
select what ROM I wanted to run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, somebody's already done that, and it's a GitHub project
Oh, wow.
that I don't happen to have the link handy, but I can post it to the group later.
Yeah. Um, what happens to paper and ink? Do we know? And border and flash, and well, flash would be fine, but any of the color commands.
They're just not there.
They're just not there. Okay,
Nope,
so
I don't see them on the keyboard. You have point
Oh,
and circle,
yeah, okay.
um, and
well, they're
screen.
just not. It's not an implementation of the spectrum completely in that way. Then,
Yeah.
No, this is a ROM that just adds the extra. It looks like it adds all the extra basic and high res screen to the ZX80.
okay, I guess I misinterpreted some of the stuff I was reading. Then,
That's really curious because what yeah, I guess there was a 16K Spectrum. All right. So I'm just trying to, imagine the memory map. Is it the Spectrum memory map? I mean, is there a 6K block that is the video?
I'm not
it
sure yet.
seems
I'll have to dig further.
well. That seems like what you said. It puts it in the 16K area there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there must be.
Yeah.
and the spectrum's display starts at that point.
Right.
Although I don't need it. Don't know if it needs to be 6K if it's only black and white, right?
Well,
Because you could do high res screens in a 1K CX81,
yeah.
Yeah.
and you could
Well,
do full high res screens in a 2K TS-1000 using the onboard static RAM.
well, the idea would be is that if it's got all the layout and everything, that it could be spectrum compatible in a sense, right? But
Yeah, it's Spectrum compatible as much as it doesn't have the color commands,
Okay.
but the ROM call points are as close as they could possibly do with the missing pieces. So if you took a Spectrum program written in BASIC
Yeah.
and basically just stripped out all the color, any color stuff, if there was any in there, and then loaded it into this, it should run.
And what tape format does it use? Does it use the
Same with the
681?
Spectrum, with one of the header and then data.
Okay. Huh.
so would it actually load a spectrum program and just ignore the other things?
Yeah, so what the folks on the forums did is they actually wrote a a program as a demo, and that's what I downloaded. And I listened to it on the little SPI CAS, and I go, oh yeah, that's Spectrum, because you could hear it sounded just like a 2068 program versus a
Yeah,
1000 program, right?
sure.
And so I played it in there, and it ran, right? So that was one of my tests to make sure that this thing was running. And so I thought, well, okay, this is a Spectrum program. So I got the Harlequin and put that tap file on the SD card, and it ran there just the same, except it didn't do fast and slow
Hmm.
because there was a fast and slow command. It just ignored those because they're prefaced by rem. So
Yeah,
yeah, these extra commands are actually prefaced by rem with a like dash dash and a greater than symbol to signal that that's something that the ROM should pay attention to.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So it's
yeah.
not a direct inline.
no, fast and slow are like kind of off, and you have to call them special within a
Oh,
REM statement. And there were a few other commands too. I haven't gotten into those yet,
okay.
but I can show you.
This really is a Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, it is. It really is. If I can share my screen.
Yep, I think so.
I guess the other one would be, I mean, could you load a spectrum program in, but it just ignores those keywords?
Okay, so let's see. Well, I mean, the all
Are you just
important.
seeing the? Are you just seeing the keyboard?
Yep,
Okay, good.
yep. There's the all important read data restore, open screen. Okay, so if it's got a screen command, then the screen memory is going to be like it implements Spectrum screen memory. So in that case, Joe, uh you're gonna need 48K of RAM, for it to be sort of useful. because with 16K of RAM, I think I'm trying to think what's the available amount.
It's not much.
It's not much on a Spectrum, right? So it's going to be about the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
what
I
I need to
guess
build a RAM upgrade.
so. The other questions are with respect to hardware, because we had just in recent meetings been talking about the dressing peculiarities of the ZX81. So does this ROM just simply not have that, or is it getting around some of that, or is that still an issue?
It gets around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the high memory mirroring of things.
Right. Yeah. So that's still there if things aren't mapped into that space. And I'm gonna have to do a little bit of playing because the forum the forum posts leave a lot to be desired. There's no tutorial there. It expects a high level of understanding of what they're doing. Um, so
Right.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm gonna try things, and then I'll let you know if it worked or not.
Sure.
Um, what what's going on in the bottom row, the NOPQRST and U on
I
space?
have not figured that out yet, and I don't think anybody's mentioned what
It,
that's.
what? Yeah, that's weird. Okay,
It's almost like inverse letters, but not all of them have an inverse because the graphics take
that's
up
exactly what that is.
space.
Yes,
So I'm
A through
guessing
U.
that's what it is. But
Oh,
again, I don't have a keyboard. Well, I have a
Those
keyboard.
are
those are the
those
user-defined
aren't.
graphics.
Yeah, those are user graphics. That's what
Yeah, those
those
are the
are.
user-defined graphics. It's A through U. Okay. What about lock on 8? There's two locks. There's a green one and a I don't.
That's a
Caps
caps
lock,
lock.
I think.
Is it both just lock, caps lock?
Yeah, because if you notice, there's in the green
Yeah,
small
lowercase.
characters, lowercase, so you can lock caps because it comes up automatically lowercase.
Yeah.
And I think you can lock inverse or something like that.
And then you've got an inverse video and a true video in the
Yeah,
9 and 0. Wow, this is really crazy. This is a Frankenstein. I mean, how
it's what
many
the 1500 should have been.
yeah, I guess. How many how do you get a merge command? What do you press?
I think you have to hit. Um, oh gosh,
Fun-
I worked this out.
Is it shift
Oh,
function and
it's
then
probably
function
It's shift
merge?
function shift M.
yeah. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you shift
Doesn't
function to get to the F cursor, right? And
Yeah.
then shift M to get merge. If you just hit M, you'll get pi.
Yeah.
If it's normal, you'll get
so they left
a
they left
little.
that mode like the ZX81,
Yeah,
but just added a shift. The ZX81, if you're in function, the shift won't do anything to those keys,
Yeah.
and so they added that to some of them to get the extra keywords.
This is something else. This is really strange. And you can tell it's a modern pipe symbol because it has the little divider in the middle of it versus back when they did this pipe symbol on both the Spectrum and the 2060. It's just a solid line.
on the screen it's a solid line.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's crazy, Joe. That's Are you going to use one of those little micro switch keyboards?
No, I have this.
You're gonna have
So
to
I've
switch.
3D printed this as a test keyboard for. Uh,
Hang on, let me spotlight that.
okay.
I don't know if
Oh wait, I gotta stop sharing.
you might have to stop sharing. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just a bunch of cherry
Yep.
keys. I watched the Amazon returns auctions for these. I get these for about $1 a barrel.
Whoa. Is that the
Yeah.
clear snap-on cap one?
What's that?
Is that the one with the clear snap-on cap?
No, no, these are just the key switches.
Oh, the key switches. Okay.
Right. And then I order the clear snap-on caps from China. They'll be
Yeah.
coming along here in, 10 days to a month.
Or
Yes.
two.
And I'll convert these into a Word document, kind of like I did for the 2068
Yeah.
I shared a long time ago.
Hmm.
And I did these for the, Timex Sinclair as well. It'll just be a Word document with all this information, or as much as in there as I can cram, and it'll fit inside those little keys.
Are you going to need to get little surgeon
Yeah,
magnifiers for your
yeah.
glasses? Okay.
I don't know how else to do it though. But actually, on the keys that
Just
I have,
well, no, you put the big Fresnel lens just in front of the whole
Oh,
computer.
yeah, Mr.
yeah.
Magoo style, right?
Yeah.
But the key caps that I get, you can actually make the paper longer than the top of the keycap and fold it over and see the front.
Oh, okay.
So I can add what's on the bottom here to the front of the keycap, and
Yeah.
it's still visible when I put it on a flat keyboard like this.
Well,
So
I mean, Joe, another option is to haunt garage sales for those phones with the really large buttons. The ones about
no, they're
inch and
too
a half
hard to
square.
wire.
Senior citizen version.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Wow.
So
Now, if you
another
want to throw a monkey wrench in it, there's a 40 key, I believe it's 40 keys keyboard, usually for macro controls, but you can animate the key top.
Wouldn't that be putting a keyboard in with where each key is more powerful than the actual computer itself?
That's
That's a
what we do.
possibility. You can load each key top with a GIF, and
Yeah.
have it cycle through the command structure for the key.
Yeah. You could make it massively parallel ZX81s.
That's
I think it would have to be a ZX81 per key, just to be
right. Can you see that one? That's the old Gladstone ones.
Yeah, it
Those are
is.
really hard to read. The newer ones are flat.
Yeah.
If you give me a minute, I'll probably find one for you.
Yeah. Well, and that was actually imported from England by some. It was a Dean was the name of the thing in England. Wow.
So my question to Carl, who I guess isn't here,
Yeah.
he's not here, is he?
I don't.
Nope.
Well, we got somebody. We gained someone.
No.
Who did we gain? Gustavo. Okay.
So it would be like, hey, is the RAM chip that you put in my ZX81 work for this? Is it static RAM or not? But then obviously there's the ROM fiddling you have to do. Which
If
kind of
he
leads into another question, which is, hey, how much fiddling would you need to do to I don't know, let's forget the name of it. Is it the Harlequin or is it the other one?
the little Spectrum retro clone.
It's the 8081 clone that Carl has.
Oh, yeah,
The
that's actually
438 or something like that.
yeah, the yeah.
Like how much would you have to do to that?
Well, you have to get that running. There's some. Is it Rich?
Well,
Yeah,
that's true.
Rich J has been having. He's got three of them he's built, and he can't get one of them to work. Which
Well, Carl showed us what he had to do just for the keyboard, and it's just
well, Carl has a
unreal.
different project. He has the ZX80/81 cloney thing. Which
Oh,
yeah,
that's a
which,
different than the.
yeah. I'll see if I can find that.
Right.
Okay.
But this is an example. Can you see that Spectrum keyboard that's on the Harlequin? It's
Yeah.
much easier to read with the newer, wider, taller keycaps. And uh, glare. But can you see the colors and stuff that are down
Oh
on the?
yeah,
Yeah.
you can see a little bit.
So yeah, it doesn't want to focus. But yeah, I plan on getting this exact same kind of keycap
Okay.
and building up. Probably not this keyboard, but another one using these switches. And I don't know. This was a, what do I want to say, prototype uh, keyboard that I made a long time ago. But basically just made holes that fit those key switches so I could
Yeah.
plug them in and then just wired up on the back.
Yeah, I remember doing that kind of thing. What are the keys mounted in? Did you 3D print that?
Yeah, it's just a 3D printed plate
Yeah, okay.
with some screws in it to hold it off the ground. But again, it's just a test keyboard. I
Yeah.
can wire it for either Spectrum or 2068 or whatever. And then I can just plug it into the board when it's on the bench.
Ryan, I'm gonna share. Here we go. So this is the project that Carl's been talking about, this ZX8081 double clone.
Okay.
And um
Oh yeah.
the white, you can see that this is a 3D printed case. You can sort of see that banding on the hood.
Yeah, we saw the case
Yeah.
that he
And
had.
you can, it's got the what gives it away is an 81 is an 80 rather, is the expansion connector on the left hand side in particular,
Right.
you know, versus that. And then I don't remember what was the function of this expansion board. Oh, room for 81 cards, right? Because like the 1500, there were certain um cards you couldn't plug into the 1500 because of the way it was laid out. Yeah.
Right.
And then the one that Rich and I have is the what Joe said, the CX81 plus 38. Let's see if I can.
Yeah,
Uh,
plus 38.
yeah, the plus 38, which, wow. Let's show that. Is this it? That looks like it. Am I sharing the right thing?
Yes.
Okay. And for somebody, this dude started this in 2019, and he's up to, if I recall, revision 11 ish, um which is crazy. I wonder what this TS-1000. Okay. Hmm. Interesting. So, if you're a person that likes soldering chips, lots of chips, these are two excellent projects to take up your time.
Just as a related thing, based on what Joe mentioned about read data restore, was as I recall, well, I did see, I can't remember the program I saw it in recently, was that there were machine code routines that did that with like REM statements on the 81.
Yeah.
So like it was like a one, I think was like REM comma, and then you put the values, and then you called these routines that were basically read data restore equivalents. And I think you could, I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine someone then put them on a ROM that would lived in the MT8K spot where people tend to put stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Little
It's
like
my
on a hunter
guess.
board.
Yeah. But I have seen that before. Um, although I guess some programs used it, they came on tape and they just had their own little machine code routines that they supplied for that.
Yeah, there were a couple
Oh,
solutions. Yeah.
I think it was may have been what's the name of that? Hmm. It was it the Hitchhikers? What's that program? Anyway, I've seen it.
Yeah. I, I can see the name of one of the programs in my mind's eye, but I think that there were multiple solutions, and I think they all acted just like you said, Ryan, where it was put the data
yeah,
in a RAM and do some user calls for the equivalent of read and restore.
there's one I've got. It's called Hitchhiker.
Interesting.
I guess it's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of really game, but it uses this technique. Yeah, it supplies its own little machine code routine, but it does those functions, and so that's how it has all its data in the game.
Another benefit of this is the first 127 characters are ASCII.
Oh, is it a weird blend, or
Well,
is
it's kind of like the Spectrum. The
okay?
Spectrum
Yeah, it's
had ASCII. They moved from the ZX81 and ZX80 character codes to
Yeah.
ASCII character codes. So, writing a terminal program would be trivial because you don't have all that translation to do.
What, are you saying you don't want to use ZX term and 80 columns on a 81? 300 baud modem?
well, I'd be curious to see what the compatibility with existing Spectrum files turns out to be. That I mean that like I've been on this soapbox before about the compatible and non-compatible things, and so you were calling it a Frankenstein earlier. In some sense, it is heavily basically a modified Spectrum ROM, and the question always is, well, is it modified in a compatible way or an incompatible way?
Right.
And if it's a compatible way and you can load Spectrum programs with almost no mods, like it ignores things, that makes that viable. Otherwise, it's interesting, but it would be, well, it'd be fun to code on, but you're not going to have programs available. But then again, that's where I was in 1982. I had a machine. You couldn't buy software for it until after a while, where I could finally find where I could mail order stuff. But then I couldn't. I didn't have money to really buy much of anything, so I wrote all my software. So I had to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of the point for a lot of us. Yeah. Um, Ryan, I have been digitizing tapes, and I have done a few uh ZX 81 / TS-1000 tapes. So I have some new programs for you to try out with your 21510 converter.
Oh, okay.
It might be curious because these are commercial tapes. One is one's a little word processor. It might have some machine code in it, like in the RAM, right? Um, and then there's some games from Fred Nackbauer. There's a drawing program. He calls it Doodle. And so I'll send you those because I'm curious to see whether they can be converted or if they're too funky.
Well, I think, like I said, once I got the one that loads, I call it tape like, which is basically loads everything in the P file, which is nearly all the system variables, display file variables.
Yeah.
There are some programs, what they would do is their auto start line is in the system variables, and they poked a line of basic into like the print buffer or whatever it was. And so my program goes and looks and says, oh, the address says here, and it prints a warning that's not in the usual place. and then it says, well, the line number is this, and here's the line of basic that I see there. And sure enough, I think the hot Z might do that more than others, but you get stuff like that, but that loader solves that problem
Yeah.
basically. So I think most of those things, and so at some point I might try to do the one where I have two programs stored, and it'll load the first one, and you'd have to modify that one instead of a load command to chain load the second program on the tape. You'd have to change that line of basic to call rand user again,
And
and it would
load the
and
next one.
it would see I'll change a byte in the system variable somewhere to say I've done this before, so skip and load the second one in the ROM, and then that would do that. It's just there's I don't know that too many do that on the 81,
Well,
but
actually,
that's sort of the next feature to add to that.
actually, that is exactly what one of the tapes does. The tape has a loader at the beginning of it, and then five other programs, and they are 2K programs, so they would, you know, theoretically all fit, right? Um, that might be, just the challenge that drives you around the bend.
Well, so it's like
It loads a menu, and then at the menu you get to pick, which of the five. I mean, it with the cartridge would be totally superfluous because you could just put the programs into each of their own slots. But if you wanted to preserve that menu system,
yeah, and that's where you have to kind of say, well, how many things do you want it to be able to do?
yeah,
And so hey, maybe.
yeah.
Um,
Joe, didn't you have a question about either like the 1510 or about how Ryan's program worked?
Yeah, I was getting to that. I was wondering how it worked, if it was just trying to run it out of that 8K space, or is there a loader and
so
basically just machine code or basic after that, so that when you like if you plugged into a TS 1500, or you did the RAND USR on a ZX81, the very first thing it hits is basically just a machine code copy
loader,
that's gonna copy
yeah,
a few
that's
bytes
all it
down
is.
and just put it into the 16K where everything belongs. Isn't that how the original 1500 cartridges were written? Is my question.
Well,
Or did it
basically,
run code out of that 8K space?
no, they were intending to, well, looking at the four examples that we had, they looked at it, I'm sure, and said, it's clear to me because they're all slightly different because the four programs are done differently. Like, for example, the chess program is largely machine code stored in the variables area. But, and then, we know Flight Simulator was just big, so it was bigger than one 8K block. But looking at it, they're all slightly different. So they were just sort of like, well, someone had an idea and they sort of hand wrote them for those things that were probably proofs, the initial proofs of concept, I imagine. And they got those running. But the thing is, they're tape software. In other words, there was never any program written to run out of a ROM on an 81. So I'm sure the task was, hey, how could we make stuff designed for tape just run out of the ROM so that we don't have to go and redesign it to run out of a ROM, but where it did have RAM, but um, and so it just says, well, a lot of these programs aren't real big. We could store them, most of them, in the 8K space and make a little loader initializer that's pretty small. And that was done, and it looked like he reserved like 250, these first 256 bytes for whatever the loader needed to be that it could change. So it just starts loading data at 2100 hex, and it was storing like some addresses and links and a few bytes at the very end of that 8K block, to say, okay, where does it need to go? Where are you going to find the ROM, the block to copy, and where does it, and how long is it? And then if it was 16K one, there's just code that says, okay, I'm going to need another address and length, and it's going to find it up in the higher memory and copy that right after the first block. But the other thing it does is a little bit of initialization, and that's what I found out later, that why some of my things weren't working on the 1500, because 1500 jumps to the cartridge when it sees it. It jumps to it before it's completed all the basic init. And so that was what some of that loader was doing. It goes through, like, the first thing it would do is just, I guess, RAM top system variable has been established. So it saves that and then zeroes RAM all the way down, puts the RAM top value back, and then sets a few key variables and values to sort of a minimal system, then copies the program into place where the basic program starts, 16509. And then I think I say most, maybe two of the loaders, or I think all the loaders, just generate a collapsed display file of 25 new lines of memory. So that's not stored. And then it calls some of the init routines in ROM to then pad that out. And that establishes where the variables start. And then it goes back and if the variable, so for chess, it had variables, and the variables block has additional addresses, and it says, okay, now go to E-line, call the routine to insert as many bytes as we need, because there's a ROM routine for that. Now copy the variables into that new space, and then it calls a particular routine that essentially jumps into the basic loop, more or less. Or you have to set the other thing that's stored is the address of the line to start on, and so that's set, and then there it goes. And so all I did was kind of look at those and generalize it to say, well, we know we can do 16K programs, and there's some of those. And so I just said, well, either the program part or the variables part could cross that 8K boundary. So I just generalized that to say either one could be split. So it would store that information so it could figure that out. And then that's when we ran into, well, not everything is working, because the example was like view file, view calc, do a checksum of the system variables. And so I said, well, I got to load the system variables, but that's okay because they're in the P file anyway. So, well, why don't I just make one that just does it like the load command and just load all the variables? Everything in the P file is essentially memory image from that one memory location to the end. And that pretty much was it. But I had forgotten about some of the other things that have to be initialized, because if they weren't on the 81 and 1000, you booted already. So those things were already established in the basic area. So that worked okay. But the 1500 doesn't do that. It doesn't do all of that. So I had to insert those back in. And then the tape loader scheme has been working fine. So the only extra, that is much a shorter routine loader. So that saves some space, about equivalent to the system variables. So the only extra cost of that loader is it stores the display file too. I could get away with not storing it, but I had to do like some other memory math that might be a little risky. So I just said, nah. And so if it should, so the overhead's only like, I don't know, what's it down to, if it's like 100 bytes or something. So that pretty much anything should be able to fit in the 16K part. And then there's a few options that let you set the auto run line It'll tell you what it is and that, and and so they give you some information that, and it might tell you like, hey, it looks like maybe you might need to use the tape like loader, but if it doesn't work, then you'll have to try that one. So basically, that's all it's doing is just storing that in the ROM and then copying it into RAM after it initializes the system enough, and then saying, okay, you're a basic system now. And then it's just as if you'd loaded it from tape, more or less.
So Ryan, you take a file. It sounds like you run a script on your.
So I have a C code program that you feed it a .p file.
Yeah.
And then you have a few options, and then it'll spit out a ROM image. Or
Very cool. Okay.
And then you just burn that. And there's a couple of options, like if you want the 16K split into 2 ROM files. And I just wrote another utility based on what Carl said that basically says, okay, I'm going to stack these in an EEPROM. So I'm going to have an 8K. So what he did, I think, was he has like the first 8K, and then he's got the second 8K is like, what was it? 3 8K blocks up in memory. So they're actually that far apart in the EEPROM, so that when he maps it, that's what's seen. But then you see those 2 blocks, so he didn't have to like map this block here. I guess that's simpler. So then the second program, when you change the dip switches, is interleaves, and so the second program starts in this 8K block, and its second 8K block is over here. So I made a program that you can give it, multiple ROM images, and you tell it what the interleave is, and it arranges them like that into one big ROM image you can then just burn.
Oh, that must be, there must be a special addressing need for that.
So that'll make it work easier to him to make those ROMs, and I guess anyone else. And so yeah, I'm borrowing the one. I didn't get the one he had made for me. I showed you this last time.
Yeah, Adams.
Borrowing Adams, where that's the one he's done. That's on that there, and then that goes into these there with the new keyway. And yeah, so but I did get I don't have a burner yet, so but I did get 81 working, and that seems to give me reliable results in emulation for when I make a ROM. And I'm pretty confident it should work on the real thing.
Yeah. And 81's a nice emulator.
David, did I give you this ROM?
Hang on.
The profile, ZX profile.
Show us again. Show us again.
Oh, sorry. Can you read it?
Yeah, nice ROM
profile and quick load.
No, I don't think you did. I don't think you read that one out.
I'm bad. Okay, I will get this one uploaded to you or up on the thing for. But that's another one, Ryan. Maybe you can look at this one and see how it's done, because this is a completely different implementation. This is the ROM pack, and you just plug it in and you rand USR or whatever the code is that it tells you. So it might be worth a look to see how they did this one.
Well, do you know what the address is that you?
Yeah, it's printed right on here. Like the ZX profile is at 9,000, but there's a quick load at 8,200 decimal.
Well, that sounds like they just mapped it into that second 8K block.
Exactly.
Huh.
Okay? It won't need to load. You're just calling some ROM routines.
No, I'm pretty sure that this actually, well, the quick load, I'm not sure about. I don't remember. I'll have to look at it. It seemed like the quick load patched the save and load routines and redirected them to this so that you could save and load the data much faster to tape. But the profile looks exactly like the tape loaded version of the software. So let me get this to you, and I'll put that on my to-do list.
I wonder if that's Mindware's quick load.
I mean, you say it patches it. I'm trying to think of how you patch stuff other than You
I don't know. I never disassembled it. I just used it. You know, you plug it in, ran USR the number, it made the quick loader work, and then you could run profile, and then any data that you saved to tape did it in about half the time.
Hmm.
I mean, is it just
And
something that replaced the whole ROM as well?
no, I don't think it replaces the whole ROM. I don't think it's big enough to do that.
I don't
But
know,
I'll find
Joe.
out when I look at it.
That's a 74 LS1 38.
Yes, it looks like it's only using like half of it though.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, just a couple pins. Hmm. I wonder what the point of this. Well, I mean, I assume the point of those extra large um lands is so that you can jumper them or something, scrape off the solder mask and jumper them, or they
Yeah, if
just
I
wanted
had
to make antennas.
if I had the book for this, I never did get the book for this. I bought this out of a box of goodies, right? At a not a flea market, but a computer show way back when South Bend, Indiana used to have, they called it the Century Center, and they had a massive computer shows, and people would bring all their old junk and try to sell it for outrageous prices. But there was
Like
a box
eBay in
of the
person.
F-81 stuff there. It had to have been right around 85,
Yeah.
winter of 85, and I bought that, and that was in there.
Cool. I wonder if those are probably decimal addresses.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm
So it
looking at
was
a
regular. You just typed in Rand USR, 8200, and it would start the quick load software. And then once that was established, then you could,
yeah, I'm looking at this one.
yeah,
Which has, a couple of load verify and save addresses.
Yeah, but those are all in that second 8K.
In that 8K, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the
So
profile thing, you said it has an address at 9 something.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
but
Okay.
then you did that, and he's saying that once you did this, then after that, the basic save load worked that way.
My recollection, yeah, but again, that's been more than a couple years ago.
I just don't see how it could without having like a rant, I don't know.
You'd have to
Again, my recollection may be
Like
incorrect, but
the
yeah,
like the 64K RAM pack you could opt to copy the ROM into the RAM and then you could patch it. Like it would have to have that,
yeah.
I think. I'm willing to bet it's just these alternate routines that are stuck in that extra 8K.
and it might have been buried in the profile program, that when you told profile to save something, it would use the quick load routines.
Could have been, yeah, very well
But
modified.
you had to initiate them first for some reason. Maybe that was it. Maybe it wasn't all the save and load. It was just save and load within the program.
Hmm.
I'd have to run it again and see and enter data, but again, it's been a couple of years.
It's been a hot minute. Hey Gustavo, you wanted to talk
Hi.
about a
Hello,
project.
David.
You wanted to
Ah,
talk about a project you're working on?
okay, no problem. I need to share
Yeah, go ahead.
my screen.
This meeting has been atomized.
All right. Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is the last version I am working of the new TOS operating system.
Well, hang on, Gustavo. So, what? Give us a little background because not everybody is going to know what this is for.
This?
Yeah.
Okay, this is an old project I put on the 2024 year. is a new version of the last version of the FDD system, because I am user since 85. This is the last update with the new file system, because this version support FAT is not the CPM, the old CPM structure. You can save or load directly on the any FAT system like a SD card, hard drive, or whatever. In this particular version, you have multiple application. Let me, so 1 second.
So real quick,
Yes.
what are you using for an emulator?
No, it's a proprietary emulator.
Okay. All right.
It's
So
not
then you've implemented the
yes.
FDD in your emulator as well.
Exactly. This is a complete emulation of the Timex plus FDD system.
Why haven't you shared this with us?
Yes, this is, for example, the catalog of the test directory.
Okay.
The new add-on is, because it's FAT, I have a date and time on the system. The first line put the create of the volume of the disk, because all this, the virtual disk, you have a directory on the SD card on the storage, and then you can get the date and time. And also, if you have a shared directory or folder, you can explore for any Windows machine and then access to the same directory or file that the Timex see. Is online. You can modify any file on the Windows or directory for a remote access, and then you see here online.
Okay. So within your emulator?
No, it's not the emulator, it's the software. The software support that, because the software collect the data online from the storage. When I type the catalog, okay, it's reading the storage. It's not an emulator or image or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's reading the hard disk of whatever the emulator is running on. Okay.
Exactly. This is part of the machine. Okay.
And so this is the DOS directory. So if we changed to a command window, you could get a directory and it would show kind of the same thing.
Exactly. But if I need to gain access for the back part, I open Explorer and access to the same directory.
Okay. Okay. Yes, that
would be possible. Yeah. And also in the same case, if I, for example, go one level up, no, don't remember what is the key. Sorry, because I don't have a keyboard. This is the next step to create a keyboard for. Where is the, okay, in the H. No, it's with, no, circle there.
Oh, of course.
I go up directory.
Yeah.
Then I see the catalog is different. This is the root.
Yeah.
It's more bigger. Okay. Also, I have the demo. Then cat. Okay. You see the different. This is the standard DOS disk. Okay.
And it shows you the file size in bytes for a directory. So is that the entire allocation for the directory?
Exactly. I modified the final line of the list, because it's more normal if you have the max capacity. This is limited by a variable. Yeah. I put 1 meg in the disk to move easy on any floppy.
Okay.
But this is the current total disk allocation and the remain. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not in the files I see on the screen. Just is the total disk. Because if I need the size of each file, I read directly on the screen. I need more. It's more important the total disk. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go. asterisk H go test. Oops, sorry. Okay, now I have for example, a read.txt. This is a text file which have a single line. Now I go load a program, in this case, td.bus. Okay, this is the program. The program is very easy. Open on the channel 1 the file in mode input, then list the channel to see if available or not, is open or not, then pause, input for the channel 1 in a variable alphanumeric, and then print the length and also the content.
Yeah.
Okay, very simple. Run. This is the first line status. When I open the file, is pointer in number 1, record length 1, size 10. This is the original readme txt. Then I use a single channel. That's why I have 15 channel free and 1 channel open. And this is the print in length plus the content of the file. We support also, if you, for example, format a channel a dot scp. This is the instruction to format a serial port. Okay, you see text.byte, text, autoline FDS, is support rate, oh, sorry, wrong type, event a, okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, if we go to the number 210, oh, I need to open the channel.
So like line 100?
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Open channel, blah, 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 list. Okay. You see here the configuration of the channel. Works.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now we go 1 level up. Oh, demo.
And is your channel still open? Your serial channel? Or did you? Oh, you closed it. Okay, on 130.
Let me see this. 1. No channel open. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Okay. Cut. We can go maybe fun. I don't know where they are. Fun. Dot. Also support the errors, right? If you not type the correct syntax, you receive an error. For example, colors. Load,
so it's not case sensitive, right?
No.
Okay.
Colors. Print user 0. This is the robot. And this is the ROM. ROM plus the operating system, right?
Yeah. So, okay, so you've been working on the upgrades to the Timex operating system. I think that's what TOS stands for, right?
Exactly.
Okay. You've been working on that basically since you got your FDD system.
Okay, this was because when I start with the user of the FDD, and also I investigate the core of the FDD and have all the coded, included the functionality, the stable, the structure, all the internals. And I use this information because many items was stolen, but to to save the info that I keep on my hands, I decided to recreate this.
Wow. And what about your emulator that you showed us just now? Is that something that you intend to share eventually?
Apparently not now because it's not a product or it's not standalone. The emulator need the specific tools that I create
Okay.
on the past. It's not a single product. It's not a single executable. Okay, because I have a connect to this emulator, and also I can run step by step, instruction by instruction. I can see the register of the C80.
Mm,
It's a real complete system to debugging.
mm,
That is the reason because I create the TS-Pico ROM without existing the board.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Remember
Yeah.
when we started? Yeah.
So did you sort of program an emulation of the board itself for your emulator? Or did
Yes. Yes.
okay.
Of course. Yes. I can create any peripheral for the Timex, include the SCLD, because I have the emulator of the SCLD because it's the screen you see is run the emulation of the SCLD,
Yeah.
plus the ports, plus that's why I can recreate the interface one version of the of the peripheral for Timex and the bank system. Remember
Wow.
when we
Yeah.
share sometimes on the meetings, on the Wednesday meetings?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. Wow,
This
that's
is
really
my secret tool.
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's no longer a secret. You've let the cat out of the bag a little bit here.
Hmm.
That's pretty nifty, Gustavo. That's pretty nifty.
Yeah. Just only to share with you because we see the faces more than 1 year, and also I would like to present in the community.
Yeah, yeah. Are you um are you still using like the physical disk drive units?
Not here because I'm not in my home now. This is my wife's home, and that's why when I return to our house, we can use the real hardware and also the real lab because here I have a limited access, just only the computer.
Hmm.
Okay, no more than.
Hmm. So like you need a big old lab shed like Joe has, but on wheels, so you can take it back and forth.
Nobody needs that.
Gosh,
Okay, and that is the all for today.
that was really nifty, Gustavo. Yeah, I mean, we should at least document your emulator. We should write something about it, just because that's an accomplishment unto itself, and I think it'd be cool to have that documented in some way. I think people would be a nifty story to read.
Hmm. Maybe, but it's possible. But I don't have many time to document this because remember I'm not a native in English.
Right.
I need first to type the document in Spanish, then translate, and then correct. I have that multiplied my time by 4 in total.
Well, I
That
mean,
is
that's
the
what,
problem.
that's
Yeah.
what AI is for these days. Bad translations.
Oh yes, yes, of course, but no, I use the old method. Okay,
Very
that's why
cool.
it's interesting to get all the info in a single site because I know that the Timex specs or the Timex documentation is hard to find. And this was created around 15 years ago
Hmm.
because it's in C portable, the code, and you can also compile in different platforms.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Cool. Thank you, Gustavo.
No, thank you, David, to create this space to see the different hardware solution or software solution too. Also, Ryan, very interesting finding new goals for the 1,000. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't know what to expect from you guys on any given meeting. Always pull something out. Hey Tim, I want to check in with you and see what you're up to.
Oh, not much really. Still working on a few articles for ZXZine. Waiting for any submittals to come in.
So we should not wait to send you things.
Correct.
Okay.
Once you got it and you're done, let me know, and then I've got enough. I'll say, okay, here's what we've got, and we can start working on doing a draft and getting that going. So, and this applies to anybody, even something we've already talked about, something new. If you got something that's, I like to think of it for a thing we could have completed projects. But I can take any type of document format, really, JPEGs, PNGs, whatever, binaries. Put them create a zip file, put them there. That'll go as part of the download that goes with each issue. So there's no concern. I know David explained, well, if it's 1,000 line basic program, no one's going to want to retype that. You're right. We don't put it in the easy.
Yeah.
Keep it as a separate file. Then you just, it's all digital. So why have to retype?
Yeah. Ryan, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just saying, I hope eventually, no promises here, but to have some article. I just haven't worked out I'm still working on the idea a bit, but
this will be for the 1,500 ROM thing, or
no, it's just a
okay,
just a reflection piece.
Cool.
Um,
would you be, would you consider writing up the work that you've done towards that 1,500 ROM thing? I don't want to put you on the spot, but just, think about it, because this is a good opportunity to commit mistakes to paper.
Yeah. Well, I suppose in the sense of sort of a dissection of how that works, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to work on that with Carl, come up with something. Yeah, I mean, something for the zine, I would think it would just be sort of like, okay, I'm not going to go through and I don't think he would go through the gory detail of every iteration of creating a light bulb. Just, hey, here's how this is laid out.
High level summary, yes.
And sort of like the final version, no super gory detail. I don't need, annotated assembly kind of
and
thing.
If you want to have like a PCB diagram or draft thing, that would be a binary file or digital file that would go with the zip file.
Yep.
So
yeah, anything like that.
But I think I like the idea of like the things we do, right? We've got the list, right? So there's all this email history, and I guess that's a bit of a you could think of it as like unmined ore, right? There's this big pile of stuff. If you want to find out, well, what are they doing, or where did they ever get to on this, you've really got to dig through that.
Yeah.
And to have a thing that's sort of like, okay, sort of recording the final cleaned up stuff in some form, I think is pretty useful.
Yeah, and I think even articles, as far as people interested to know, what do people do with, if someone says, well, gee, I don't write hardware, I don't do hardware, I do software. Well, what do you use your stuff for? What, that people might find interesting also.
And Tim, exactly to your point, I don't know if you remember Jamie Macbeth. He joined us quite a long time ago. for a couple meetings, and at the time he's here today, so I'm hoping he can jump in if he's not, otherwise occupied. At the time, I may be misremembering this a little bit. He wanted to use the 2068 to teach Z80 assembly at the college level. Jamie, is that right? Did I summarize that correctly?
Hi, David. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe you can see me a little bit too. Sorry. Yeah. That summarizes it pretty well. Well, yeah, I teach introduction to systems at the college level, and that involves teaching assembly programming and things about computer architecture. So yeah, that's how I got involved.
and were you able to do that? Were you able to, use the 2068 or something to teach Z80?
Not yet.
Okay.
This will take a while.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the point that I was going to make was, if you had managed to get that, if you had managed to teach a semester of that or something, that would be an interesting kind of story about, how folks are still dragging these things out of the closet.
I know on the QL side, there's at least one person on the Vault QL who, with the QL, I met him years ago. He's actually a professor in somewhere in Boston area. When I met him, he was just right out of high school, I think, or just in high school. And then there's a woman professor, but she's more into the spectrum. She's in the US, but I think she's originally British. So that's why she's more into the spectrum. And it's nice to see professors still interested in old retros. And they're not like, oh, gotta have the latest and greatest. This one gal is doing kind of some sort of newer stuff, but loves running it on the spectrum. And I think recently she joined our QL list. So she has some questions on the QL, I think. So, but
yeah, the attraction is that modern systems they're obviously more powerful, but they're way more complex. So if you want to teach people about what bits and bytes are, but you have to look at 64-bit registers and instructions, you can't go to a blackboard or whiteboard and start talking about 64 things up there. If you have only 8 or 16, it's almost doable.
Like teaching automotive and starting with a Model T Ford versus a current car.
Right. That's one of the best analogies I think that I bring up with people. Why do people like fixing and working on old cars? Because you can. I don't think you really, the newer cars, I don't think you can really do much because what's going on under the hood is so complex, and all the parts are uh regular person can't really work on them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like learning Unix and learning some of the early kernels versus current kernels. I think there was a book a while back that actually printed out the entire Unix source code somewhere back in the mid 80s. Now you couldn't, of course, because it'd be, volumes, but those days simple enough to early on.
Well, and you remember Andrew Tannenbaum wrote that book about Minix, his, version of Unix.
I believe I heard somebody ported Minix to the QL, but I never got the diffs.
Yeah. Well, and my understanding is that he had a pretty strong opinion of Linux back in the day.
Andrew Tannenbaum and Linus Torvald definitely had some discussions about, I think it was monolithic and non-monolithic kernels.
Yeah.
Above my head at the time, but I didn't really care. It was as long as it worked. As long as I liked Linux and Unix, as long as it worked like it, I didn't care about the internals too much.
Yeah. So the short version is if you're going to do something, do it now. Send it sooner than later to Tim. Which is, perhaps a command to myself.
You are down for a few articles. Yeah,
got a few things. Yep.
Yeah. But again, there's no set time on this. It's when the group wants it done. Then we'll get it done. And then we'll do, once we get it, we think is a good state, we'll put out hard copies. We'll have to figure out what the cost is with the mailing cost, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We do have that funds from the Bill Miller collection we can use for printing, and maybe we'll just print them up and charge everyone for mailing costs. I don't know. Then we have to figure out, do we charge people that are non-members? In other words, who's a member, who's not a member? Do people from the UK want a copy? I'm sure some would. So we figure out what kind of costs associated, mailing cost, and that sort of thing. So
right. Yeah.
Odds are, I think the format I'll probably go with is 11 by 17 folded in half and saddle stapled. But I'll talk with the printer to see what's the best option.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a nice format. That's a nice size.
Okay. Yeah, if you ever looked at Time Designs, it was that same 11 by 17 folded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
I needed to get a brochure done. I hired Goodwill Industries for the actual printing.
Okay.
Did they do printing? Wow.
We have a local school district does some printing. Museums use them. I used back in 2009 for something myself. Give me 1 second. It was the same idea.
I only printed 9,000.
Yeah, so basically this. I printed at a local printer in Hayward, but the guy that owned it was in Union City. And it's also, 11 by 17 in half.
And glossy-ish on the inside. Glossy on the inside?
No. Typical.
Oh, okay.
Xerox type stuff. I mean, it's not Xerox, but then because the pictures are black and white, they come out pretty decent. So, but the original pictures were newsprint to begin with, so not the best. But we can do a hard stock cover that's actually got color. This has actually got some hard, like 20 stock or something.
Yeah.
So that's the general idea. Can't remember this one. This right here is just over about 60 pages.
Okay.
I can't remember what the cost was. I think we did 3,000, but we're not going to do that much. We're going to do maybe 100 or maybe 150. I don't know however many we need to see. We can also ping the folks in Europe, say, hey, anyone's interested, let us know. This is what it's going to be, what it's going to cost us, and we'll print out enough to cover everything, and probably print out a few extras. Because like when people do the Spectrum Next, there was always, so many were made, and then they're like, oh, people come out of the woodworks wanting more. So print out a few extras.
Right.
So, but again, it will always be available as a download, but it's just a hard copy people will kind of like, I guess. So,
well, I think it'll be nice, marker,
You guys do like your hardware. This is technically hardware. Well, so it's physical, put that way.
Isn't that firmware of some sort?
Hard copy.
It's physical. Yeah, it's physical.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas everything I do is virtual, electronic. Like, the other past issues always been digital. So you guys like the physical hardware stuff. And
anybody know the line from Hackers, the bad guy? They give him a printout and he goes, "Ooh, hard copy." But no, well, having a few extras, maybe if we ever get a little bit more presence at some of these.
For the VCFs.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. VCF West is going to be August 2nd and 3rd here at the Computer History Museum. I plan on going. Which
I really would love to go there.
Now, if we actually want, I mean, I could look at maybe passing out some flyers advertising our group or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll have a table where people just drop off flyers, so we can advertise our group.
That'd be certainly a flyer.
Yeah, and then the plus the group, the zines, maybe they'll say, hey, we got a hard copy coming out, let us know. When I went to Origins back years ago, I was a subscriber to a small e-zine, well, physical hard copy. For fun, I printed up a small flyer for the guy, didn't tell him, passed him out, put him on a table at Origins. He's like, wow, I suddenly started getting letters from people for looking for, I'm like, yeah, that was me. He had no idea that I did that until people started subscribing more. So,
but even just having the zine, if in there are articles about some of the hardware projects and software projects,
yeah,
that could show that, oh, hey, it's not just this list of things. There's actually new stuff happening, right?
I think if the people in the UK hear about the TS-Pico, they will be impressed, because to them the 2068 is very rare.
Yeah.
And maybe to them is something, it was way over in the US and very few people have them. So whereas not so rare here.
Yeah.
And they might want something. Well, do they have something similar for the Spectrum? And basically it's the TS-Pico is kind of like Z Expand.
Well, on the Spectrum side, there's the Div MMC is the most popular thing.
Okay. I haven't followed it too closely.
Yeah. And it's a different philosophy. It's really interesting. I mean, it does map in, it's ROM.
But there are few 2060s in the UK. We might get, if once people know about it, you might get some orders from the UK.
Well, funny you should say that, because one of the earliest, when we first made these things available, one of the orders was from a guy in the UK. And he just ordered a Pico video, and so I sent him that and the upgraded ROM that he needed. But I don't really hear from him, so I don't know what he's doing. I wish he would,
You wouldn't know his name, would you?
John something.
Okay, now because on this QL daily chat IRC thing, there's a bunch of people there that are multiple systems. People got Amigas and BBCs and other things. So
yeah,
there's a few US folks, but I'm surprised they haven't joined our group here. There's one guy in North Carolina, a couple people local. I think we had Lewis join once or twice, but it's been a while since he's joined.
Okay.
I don't think he shows up all that often. But a lot of them are in the UK, and so I talk about multiple machines.
Yeah. There are people who do that. I'm not one of them, but so Tim, if you do make a flyer for the VCF, send it to the list, because I kind of recall your mention about Origins reminded me that sometimes you can send flyers to people who organize these, and they'll put them out on a table for you if you just send them a pile.
Well, also then, like Randy would scoop that up possibly.
Yeah.
If he gets to something else, he
gets
to some.
Yeah. And
I thought I plan on going, so I can just drop the flyers off.
Yeah.
But I'll also probably contact them about possibility. But they're usually pretty good, especially when something's that's I'm not selling anything. It's just hey, we're this user group, and they're usually good about our people would like to know more about that. I have no idea if Emmy's doing anything for VCF Sinclair wise at all. I'll probably wear
I'm just
one of my shirts.
Nice.
Actually, I was wearing one with just the whole picture of the QL on it the other day. Is at a thrift store, and the guy said, "Oh, I like your shirt." And goes, "Do you know what it is?" "Yeah, it's a keyboard." I'm like, "No, it's a computer." The whole thing. Well, he was probably in his 20s or something, so no idea about home computers.
So what I was thinking of though was reaching out to the folks who organize VCF, like on the East Coast and whatever, to see if I can send them a pile of the flyers, and if they have like a table for it, because I'm not going to go because it's in like Jersey or something.
I used to know the guy that started the VCF. He was local, because I went and did the VCF. Was it number 5 or something? This is like
a
Boy,
little while ago.
Yeah. I'm on the website, but it doesn't say what year. It might have been like 2005 or something. It's when the Computer History Museum was still at Moffett Field. It hadn't gone over to the old SGI building one, something like that. Because the building they're in now was built by SGI. It looks exactly like an Indy computer. And when they moved first to Moffett, they didn't have a whole lot of funding, and then suddenly they got some funding, and then really took off. They've been doing a lot since. But well, that was it. But the VCF, I knew the guy. He was out of Livermore. He and I chatted a few times. He was big into older stuff. Think I had a Linus Wright top that he wanted access to. Can't remember if I still had that at all. He was surprised. So Linus Wright top was one of the first pen-based laptops you could get. It basically was. It never hit the market. But a guy I knew, a guy I met in DC, picked up like 10 or 20 from someone here in the West Coast and then resold them in the DC area, and I got one.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I still have it running around in pieces. But I used it for a bit. It's just a simple DOS machine. It had a nice little LCD display and everything, but it worked.
It had a pen or a finger touch thing?
It was on a wire, though.
Oh, okay.
So, think of it like an Oreo, where the screen and then inside it was a smaller main processor, then a little bit bigger, but the screen detached from the computer, so you could have the computer in your backpack, and then the tablet on a wire to the computer you could be holding. Somebody look up Linus Wright top.
I'm looking it up right now. Yeah. Oh my gosh,
okay.
That's craziness. Let me just share this. There it is.
Yep, there you go. See how it's
resistive
detached?
Screen. Yeah. Wow, that looks really small.
It's probably.
Yeah, no, that was sarcasm. It looks like it's really big and heavy.
It's a good 8.5 by 11, maybe a little bigger, and the little lid there flipped up to expose the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the thing on the left is the CPU. What's the bigger part that it's mounted
piece of
on?
plastic.
Just a handle. Okay.
Yeah, sort of. And then it came with a 3.5-inch drive, the little cord that comes out more. There's your pen that roosted inside the little hatch. The top of the hinge there was where it roosted.
Interesting.
Came with some software to do pen stuff. Other than that, it was a typical DOS machine.
I'll be darned.
DOS, and I ran Micro Emacs on it. So
wow.
Because it would stand up proper, lift the thing up, and just use like a regular. And I also allowed an external keyboard too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see what they don't know whatever that. Okay. Interesting.
I just there, but
reminds me of the stylophone.
It was basically it was a way for me to get a MS-DOS laptop dirt cheap. Well, moderately cheap back in 91, 92-ish, because I left DC about 92. I had it for about a year in DC, so about like 90 or 91.
Yeah.
So some guy put a posting at the bulletin board of the Pentagon, and I ran across it. I mean, what was laptops like in those days? 91, 90, 91, what were they costing for laptops? So I think I paid $400 for the right top.
Oh, you got a deal. Yeah.
The laptops were going for a lot more back then.
Yeah. I mean, I think, when was the Toshiba T1000? Roughly the same time. Yeah, exactly the same time. 87, both, and it was $1,200 when it came out.
So a few years later, and again, this is something that never hit the market. What I heard was it was made by TRW for Linus. Linus died before TRW could pass it on to them. So TRW sold it in the discount market. Hey, we got a pallet of these, sell it. And then somebody here in California had a friend in DC. He sold him a bunch, and the guy in DC then sold it to me.
That's crazy.
Ever see any of the hardened laptops?
Only thing I saw hardened was desktops. Although I thought the Grid Compass might have been hardened, but I'm not too sure. I ran across hardened Tempest desktops before.
Somebody did make a portable that was hardened.
You're thinking maybe, Paul, of those Toshibas, or not Panasonics?
I think the Grid Compass, there was a hardened version, I think.
Yeah.
I may have ran across one that was partially Tempest. I ran across some desktop. I know we had Sun 386Is that had removable hard drives. Because if you were in the E-ring in the Pentagon and you had classified, you couldn't keep it in on the computer. You had to remove it and put it in a safe. So some people had SideQuest drives, and one guy had a SideQuest, and it would basically like a big floppy. You push a button, it would then eject, and but he would like push the button to spin it down, and this manually eject it without it spinning down properly. And so somewhere I've got a copy of a SideQuest drive with grooves in the disk because it was still spinning when he ejecting it, and it's like, oh, don't do that.
So he took out both the drive and the module itself.
Probably more like the drive. I can't remember, but I remember it's like, oh, every time he did it, it's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost a drive because security would go in periodically and just look at logs and things, and they would just yank them when they were done. And soon after they powered off and wouldn't, back in the day when you had to let them sit a couple seconds.
Yeah. When you had a DOS command to park the head.
Yep. You guys remember that years ago. When I worked at Legato, I supported a failover product. They set 2 Windows machines you can failover back and forth. And one of the companies that had this product was a Carnival. And I thought, if you don't shut this down right, things can go bad. And I didn't really trust the Carney people to shut down servers that well. But apparently they did, because they used the servers to then run all of their ticketing systems. So hopefully that's somebody that knew what they were doing.
Wow. Well, that was attached to money generation.
Yep, SideQuest. There you go.
So I'll be a little bit of an early Adam, just to say 14 minutes 15 left. Minutes.
I gotta look at the calendar.
So
give me a sec.
Start wrapping up.
Well, okay, so this is one of those weird months because Monday is the 1st. The 3rd Sunday is going to be the 21st. And so there's actually, there's 5. Is there 5? No, there's not 5 weeks. Maybe it was 5 weeks in the last month. Anyway.
Well, almost 5 weeks.
Yeah.
4.5.
So our next meeting is going to be 2 and change, just a little bit over 2 weeks. Sunday, July 21st. It's not a holiday that I'm aware of, so we won't need to reschedule. That'll be the usual 2 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, we'll probably have topics that we don't even know about to talk about.
We're expecting great things from everyone out there.
Yeah. Johnny, I just want to check with you. Is there anything you wanted to touch base with us on? I'm gonna take your silence as a no. Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, this was enlightening, entertaining. You always surprise me with this stuff. And I think with that, maybe we'll call it an early evening by 13 minutes. Or you can say,
I will add that I've been playing with the ROM cart that I got from Carl. States and capitals I've been practicing, so I finally aced one of the tests.
Okay, so the capital of Oklahoma is what?
I got you. Oklahoma City.
All right, good, good.
Okay, LAHOMA, Oklahoma. Now I got to do the reverse where you it gives you the state, and then you have to remember that the city. That's harder.
How about Springfield as the capital of what?
Illinois.
Okay. All right. All
But
right.
I was surprisingly rusty. Had not used this knowledge.
South Dakota.
Pierre?
Yeah, I think so. Is Bismarck North Dakota?
Yeah.
Okay. Clearly, we have learned nothing from this educational software that was supposed to be the most important mission of the Timex Sinclair 1000.
Yeah, but see, playing it, then I'm like already thinking of like, oh, let me try to make a new version where it like includes, quiz you on the state abbreviations, 2-letter postal abbreviations, add that in, and then add in some string manipulation to sort of like, in case you didn't type enough S's in Mississippi or something like that. Maybe it
I have vague memories
it.
about being in grade school when we were doing that sort of thing, the postal codes, the state abbreviations. And someone couldn't get Montana. So the instructor said, point to your head and what is it? MT.
Ryan, if I recall correctly, George Grimm, who wrote that program, said that there's a spelling error in one of the capitals.
Oh, guess I hadn't really looked that close.
All right. Well, that's your mission for our next meeting. Double check against all of them against Wikipedia.
We'll see if I catch you guys. There's a good chance I might. It'll be like 7 p.m. in the UK where I'll be.
That's right. That's right. All right. Everybody put in your orders. Email Ryan what you want him to pick up for you.
Forget where I missed what he said.
All right.
We're gonna vacation later this month, so in the UK.
Yeah, do you watch Control Reese on YouTube at all?
No.
Oh, okay. So I think you mentioned I'll have to see if I can find it. Basically, it's an interactive map on the web where you plug in the town that you're going to visit. It'll tell you all the vintage computer sites and places to visit that are in that area.
Oh, that would be very cool.
Do you know where in the UK you're going?
Yeah, well, we're going to West Central areas, and then we're gonna go kind of all around. We'll get to London at some point. So I'm going to try to hit a few of at least one. So I got several of them mapped out to see where one's nearby. I want to try to get to the one in Cambridge. That's pretty good. Because I want to see the old Sinclair building.
I'd say hit car boot sales, but everyone over there is saying that all the older 80s computers are still expensive. They're very collectible now, so they're not available real cheap. So
Oh yeah, back when I was there many, many years ago, I should have picked up something, but I didn't.
All right. Well, yeah. I guess you'll get a buy on that meeting. You don't necessarily have to make it, Ryan, but if you can, that'll be cool as heck.
Certainly I'll be on the lookout for things. So maybe chance will serendipity, I guess you could say, would put me in touch with something.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. Awesome. All right, gentlemen. Have a good evening. See you in 2+ weeks. Yeah.
And I still have daylight, by the way.
You still have daylight. Yes. Well, of course. It's because you live in, Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.